All right, welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. Ever wondered how to really nail that payroll assistant interview? Today, we're going to cut through some of the noise and get you really well informed about this pretty crucial role. We've got this fantastic guide from Kaplan. It's called Six Payroll Assistant Interview Questions. And look, our mission here is to go way beyond just, memorizing answers. We're here to actually unpack the core skills, the competencies, and the kind of mindset that employers are really looking for. So yeah, consider this your shortcut to feeling confident for that next big opportunity.
And that's exactly right. I mean, while these questions, okay, they're specific to a payroll assistant role, what's really interesting is how they tap into universal skills.
Universal skill, like what?
Well, think about it.
Yeah.
Accuracy, being compliant, solving problems under pressure. These come up everywhere. Understanding why they're asking these questions, that's almost as important as figuring out what to say. It helps you frame your answers, with real insight into what the job actually demands.
Okay, let's get into it then. Our first stop on this deep dive is that really foundational question. What experience do you have in payroll? Sounds simple enough, right? But I guess there's more to it.
Oh, absolutely. Kaplan's guide points out, and it's spot on, that the best answer isn't just running through your old jobs. No, it's about showing specific, relevant experience and showing the impact. You want to quantify it if you can. For instance, saying, I have X years of experience working directly in payroll, and obviously you put your actual number in for X, then you should definitely highlight specific roles or responsibilities like I handled Y and Z tasks. Maybe that's processing paychecks for, say, 200 people, or managing benefits deductions, or doing the year-end tax forms. Be concrete.
Right, concrete examples.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And showing breadth is important too. Mentioning if you've done payroll for different size companies, A, B, and C sizes, maybe a small startup versus a big corporation. Each one shows different skills, different challenges you've overcome. And of course, you absolutely need to show a strong grasp of payroll laws and regulations. That's non-negotiable. Plus, proficiency in specific payroll software. Mention the names like DE and F, ADP, Workday, QuickBooks Payroll, whatever you've used.
So it's really about demonstrating range and depth, not just listing jobs. Is there something deeper employers are testing for here?
I think so. They're probably gauging your adaptability, right? And maybe your potential to grow as someone who's handled payroll for both that tiny startup and the huge corporation. That shows they can scale their skills, manage complexity, probably troubleshoot more kinds of issues. It's like showing your payroll muscle works in different gyms.
Payroll muscle. I like that. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. It paints a much richer picture. And speaking of critical stuff, that brings us neatly to question 2. This one drills down on something absolutely vital in payroll. Can you explain how you handle payroll tax compliance?
Yeah, compliance is huge. And this question gets right to it. How do you show you're committed in an area that's always changing? The strategy, and this comes straight from the source material, is to really emphasize your dedication. Talk about staying up to date on federal, state, and local tax laws and regulations constantly. You also need to make it clear that you ensure all employee information is accurate and up to date, and crucially, that all taxes are calculated and withheld correctly.
Accuracy and timeliness seem key there.
Definitely. And mention the timely filing and remittance of all payroll taxes. Plus, your proactive awareness of any changes. You can't just react, you have to anticipate. It's all about diligence and continuous learning.
Okay, diligence and continuous learning. But, tax laws change so often. How can someone realistically show proactive awareness without just sounding, I don't know, like they're guessing?
That's a really practical point. It's not about knowing every single rule off the top of your head. That's impossible. It's about showing you have a system for staying informed. So maybe you mentioned specific resources you rely on, like you subscribe to IRS updates, or you're a member of a professional group like the APA, or you attend regular webinars on tax changes. It just shows you're plugged in. You're actively seeking out the information, not just waiting for it to land on your desk.
Got it. Having a system makes sense. Okay, and what about when things inevitably go wrong? Which brings us to question 3. How do you handle and resolve payroll issues? Because, let's be honest, they do happen.
Oh, they absolutely do. And employers want to know you can handle it calmly and effectively. Kaplan's guide suggests a really structured approach, which is great. First, you talk about identifying the root cause. You have to figure out why it happened. Then, researching and analyzing the issue to find a solution makes sense. Communication is also critical. So you'd mention communicating with the right people, colleagues, maybe managers, maybe even the employee sometimes, to gather information and sort the issue out quickly.
Right, keeping everyone in the loop.
Exactly. And documentation. Mention that you document all payroll issues and report them as needed. And then, the really smart part, implementing preventative measures to avoid similar issues in the future. That shows you're not just fixing problems, you're improving the process, thinking ahead.
That's a really thorough cycle. Find it, fix it, document it, prevent it. That prevention piece sounds crucial, especially with payroll where errors can be, well, expensive.
Could you give a quick example of a preventative measure someone might mention? Sure. Let's say you kept finding errors related to how new employee data was being entered. A preventative measure might be something like implementing a double-check system for all new hire paperwork before it hits payroll. Or maybe setting up an automated validation rule in the software itself to catch common errors. It's about building in those checks and balances.
Building in checks and balances. Good phrase. Okay, but fixing things, improving things, that often relies on the tools you're using, right? Which leads perfectly into question 4, especially in our tech-heavy world. Can you explain your experience with payroll systems and software?
Yeah, and the guide is pretty clear here. It's not enough to just say you're computer literate or something vague like that. No, you need to talk about your experience working with various payroll systems and software. Name them again, such as D, E, and F. ADP, Workday, Paychex, maybe specific HRIS systems. And it's not just listing them. It's about showing you understand how they work, how they help with compliance, how they reduce errors, how you leverage them for accurate payroll.
So practical application.
Exactly. Highlight your proficiency in key tasks, entering data, maintaining records, actually processing the payroll, generating those important reports, and, yeah, the ability to troubleshoot and solve any issues that may arise with the system. That's a huge bonus because, let's face it, technology hiccups sometimes.
Definitely. It shows you're not just a user, but someone who can manage the tool effectively. Okay, this next one. This feels incredibly important given what payroll deals with. Question 5. How do you ensure the confidentiality and security of payroll information? This is all about trust.
It absolutely is. Trust and responsibility. Our source gives a good framework for answering this. You talk about implementing strict internal controls and policies. Maybe you mention things like access levels, password protocols, specific rules for handling data. It's vital to state clearly that all employee information is kept confidential and only accessed by authorized personnel. Simple, but crucial. Then you can talk practical steps too, like regularly updating computer and network security. Maybe even mentioning awareness of things like phishing scams or data breach procedures. You need to show you're vigilant.
Agility, yeah.
And finally, just showing you understand the risks associated with handling sensitive payroll data. It reassures them you take security seriously, because you have to.
You really do. It's about showing that proactive, responsible mindset. Okay, last question, number 6. This is one of those classic behavioral questions. Can you describe a time when you had to handle a difficult situation related to payroll? This is where you show, not just tell.
Exactly. This is your chance to bring your experience to life with a specific story. The guide offers a really good example template, something like, well, I recall a time when there was an error in the payroll process. It actually resulted in several employees being overpaid, which, that's a tricky situation.
Definitely tricky.
So you explain how you quickly identified the problem. Then you research the issue to find the right solution. But the key here is also the human side. You'd explain how you communicated with the appropriate parties, maybe management, definitely the affected employees, to resolve the issue and figure out how to correct the overpayments sensitively. It's not just about fixing the numbers. It's about managing that situation, maintaining trust, even when things have gone wrong.
That's such a great way to frame it. Turning a potentially negative situation into proof of your skills, problem-solving, communication, attention to detail. It's like a mini case study of you in action.
Precisely. And the key takeaway, as the source highlights, is to reflect on the importance of attention to detail and the real value of clear and timely communication when you're fixing payroll issues. It shows both your technical skill and your kind of emotional intelligence.
That makes perfect sense. Now, before we wrap this up, it's worth pointing out, isn't it, that these skills we've been dissecting, accuracy, compliance, problem-solving, communication, they aren't just for payroll assistants. The Kaplan source actually mentions related jobs where these same skills are vital. Things like Attendance clerk, bonus clerk, HR administrative assistant, payroll administrator, payroll bookkeeper, payroll clerk.
That's a great point. It really shows how these core competencies are transferable across a whole range of administrative and financial roles. It's a solid foundation.
Yeah.
And, zooming out a bit, Kaplan, as our source here, also points to some other really helpful tools they offer, things that can help your career journey beyond just prepping for this one interview. They mention an interview coach tool, which sounds pretty cool, designed to actually help transform your performance in interviews. And there's an offer analyzer. This lets you compare a job offer, the salary, the benefits, against market data, which the source says comes from places like the Department of Labor and tons of job postings. So real data.
That offer analyzer sounds incredibly useful for negotiating.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, just the general advice, upload your resume to their platform, check out their career guides, lots of resources there to help you shape things.
Fantastic. So there you have it. We've gone deep into those 6 key questions, unpacked the skills behind them, looked at related roles, even touched on some tools to help you further. Hopefully you're feeling much better equipped now, not just for a payroll assistant interview, but to really think like a top candidate in this field. Remember, it's more than numbers. It's trust, precision, and problem solving.
Exactly. And, just a final thought to leave you with. If we connect all this back to the bigger picture, mastering these skills for a payroll interview, the detailed communication, the meticulous problem solving, it kind of raises a bigger question, doesn't it? How do these specific skills translate more broadly? It really highlights the universal value of being careful, being accurate, communicating clearly, especially when you're handling sensitive information or complex processes, no matter the field. It makes you think, what other niche skills actually have that kind of universal power, something that you want?